Have you ever witnessed a suburban showdown so intense it could rival any primetime drama? On a quiet sunny morning in a small American neighborhood, the peace was shattered by one woman's relentless determination to assert control over what she claimed was her property. Karen, a notorious figure among her neighbors for her overbearing attitude and obsession with rules, stood firmly in front of her house, arms crossed, glaring at the road crew preparing to pave the new public street that had been approved months ago by the city council. Her face twisted with anger, she shouted, "This is my land! Nobody is building a road here without my permission." The workers froze mid-step. Shovels and machinery paused as a tense silence fell over the street. The neighbors peeked through their windows and stepped cautiously onto their lawns, some whispering to each other about Karen's latest antics. Karen had always been vocal about her personal property, but this time, her opposition threatened a legally sanctioned public project intended to improve traffic flow and access for the entire neighborhood. As she waved her clipboard and papers filled with her own handwritten notes and copied HOA regulations, she insisted she had the right to stop construction, citing obscure property law passages she barely understood. Her voice rang through the cul-de-sac, scaring away a delivery driver and drawing the attention of local joggers, who slowed down, unsure whether they should intervene. Just as Karen prepared to call the police herself, a city official drove up in a sleek government vehicle, accompanied by two uniformed officers. The tension skyrocketed as the vehicle stopped directly in front of Karen's driveway. The officer stepped out holding official paperwork, his expression a mix of patience and mild frustration. He calmly approached Karen and said, "Ma'am, we are here to serve you with a formal notice regarding the road project in your area. This is a city-approved development, and construction has been authorized legally." Karen's eyes narrowed, refusing to accept the documents. She waved her hands wildly, insisting that the project was illegal and that no authority had the right to encroach upon her claimed property. Her yelling drew more neighbors outside, and soon a small crowd formed, some curious, some amused, while others whispered about the fines and penalties Karen could face for obstructing public work. The officers remained calm, explaining in clear terms the legal approval process, city permits, and the public benefit of the road. They even offered to review the official records on site with her. Karen, refusing to listen, accused the city of harassment and called the officers bullies who had no right to interfere. As she escalated her shouting, the officers strategically placed themselves to prevent any physical confrontation with the construction crew. Karen continued pacing back and forth, reading aloud sections from her stack of papers, often contradicting herself as she misquoted legal text. Meanwhile, her neighbors recorded videos on their phones, some giggling, others shaking their heads at the absurdity of the situation. What started as a quiet morning suddenly became a spectacle, with Karen at the center, her anger and determination growing by the minute. The officer finally said, "Ma'am, we have the authority to issue fines and enforce compliance if necessary. We're giving you the opportunity to avoid further penalties by cooperating today." Karen's face flushed with rage. Her pride wounded, but she continued to argue, oblivious to the fact that ignoring official notices could escalate matters. The city official calmly began reading the notice aloud, explaining the fines, legal consequences, and the steps that would be taken if the obstruction continued. Karen, now visibly frustrated and exhausted from yelling, attempted one last stand, claiming, "You can't do this. I've lived here for years. This is my neighborhood." But the officers held firm, documenting every interaction, their presence a stark reminder that law and order outweighed personal obsession. The crowd of neighbors now included children peeking through fences and elderly residents murmuring about Karen's notorious HOA complaints. The tension was palpable. Karen had turned a routine infrastructure project into a neighborhood spectacle, and the city had no choice but to enforce the law while maintaining calm. The first part of the standoff ended with Karen reluctantly taking the paperwork, her hands shaking slightly, still muttering protests under her breath. The construction crew, now cautiously resuming their work at a distance, knew the legal process was moving forward, and Karen's battle, though loud and dramatic, was officially losing ground. The next day, the tension escalated further as Karen arrived early in the morning, determined to halt any movement on the street. Armed with her clipboard, a stack of legal notices she had compiled herself, and a megaphone borrowed from a local community event, she stationed herself firmly in front of the driveway, blocking the road crew from accessing their equipment. Her voice echoed down the street as she shouted, "This is private property! Nobody enters without my consent!" The workers tried to explain, but Karen drowned them out with accusations of trespassing and corruption, claiming the city had no authority. Within minutes, police arrived once again, this time accompanied by a higher-level city official and a legal advisor. The official calmly addressed Karen, stating, "Ma'am, we are authorized to enforce the approved road construction. Your obstruction of public work is subject to fines and legal consequences." Karen, refusing to back down, argued vehemently, her fingers pointing aggressively as she waved her documents. She tried to rally neighbors to her cause, some reluctantly stepping closer, while others kept their distance, wary of getting involved in legal complications. The officer handed Karen a fine notice, explaining the immediate penalty for her continued obstruction. Karen's face turned red with disbelief and fury as she realized the weight of the city's authority. The legal advisor detailed the step-by-step enforcement plan, including potential escalation if she persisted, emphasizing that public infrastructure took precedence over personal claims. For the first time, Karen hesitated, scanning the street filled with cameras, neighbors, and police officers. The construction crew, now shielded by officers, resumed work, slowly moving their machinery closer to the planned road path. Karen's shouts turned into mutters of frustration as she struggled to comprehend that her attempts to control the situation were futile. One officer calmly explained, "The fines increase daily if obstruction continues, and additional legal action will be pursued." Karen, now visibly shaken and reluctantly accepting the reality, stepped aside, though she continued to grumble and make protest gestures. The crowd, witnessing the enforcement of law over personal obstinacy, breathed a collective sigh of relief. Some neighbors cheered quietly while others shook their heads at Karen's stubbornness. As the road crew moved forward, carefully and efficiently, Karen sat on the edge of her porch, muttering complaints and occasionally checking her phone for legal loopholes. But the city had ensured compliance. By afternoon, the road project was back on track, with barriers removed, machinery moving, and construction signs clearly posted. Karen had received her fines and formal warnings, her protest captured on video by numerous neighbors and a few local reporters who had come to document the chaos. Her face, a mix of anger, embarrassment, and reluctant acceptance, told the story of someone who tried to assert personal authority over the law and failed. The neighborhood, once tense and anxious, gradually returned to normal. Children played on sidewalks, workers continued their tasks without obstruction, and Karen's house, now quieter than ever, stood as a reminder that personal obsession could not overpower legal authority. The incident quickly became the talk of the community, shared on social media and discussed in HOA meetings, with many laughing at the dramatic standoff while acknowledging the importance of law enforcement in maintaining order. Karen, though unwilling to admit defeat publicly, had learned firsthand that the city's authority and public benefit projects outweighed individual claims, and the fines and legal consequences had made her reconsider future confrontations. By evening, the neighborhood was calm, construction continued, and the story of Karen versus the authorities became an infamous example of persistence meeting regulation, a cautionary tale about ego, legality, and the unstoppable force of government oversight when public welfare is at stake.